Chairman Xi of the CCP has now gutted the system so wholly that there is no longer any institution within the system that has any authority aside from him, his person. The CCP is a shell of what it used to be. The analysts are gone. The intelligence officials who are intelligent are gone. He has executed or imprisoned or intimidated into silence everyone within the PRC who's capable of conscious thought. It's a one-man show now. And so policy reflects what he says on any given day. And then the bureaucrats take it one of two directions. Number one, they wait to be personally told what to do, so we get scoliosis. Or two, they're zealots and they think they're doing what he wants. And that's how you get people out in EV suits, dusting runways with virusicide in order to disinfect them during COVID. So the ability of this country to carry out functional policy is now gone.
Welcome back to another deep dive session where we shine a light on the intricate labyrinth that is global geopolitics. In this episode, we'll be navigating the tumultuous sea of the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict, a geopolitical hotbed that has reverberated across the globe, affecting nations far beyond its immediate vicinity. We're going to scrutinize Russia's audacious strategies and the geopolitical chess game they're playing, despite the mounting economic and diplomatic costs. We'll examine the repercussions of Western economic sanctions, which have squeezed Russia into exploring new financial frontiers and testing the waters with countries like China. Speaking of China, we'll also be delving into the complex role they've played in this geopolitical saga. It's a role that involves a delicate balancing act between the East and the West, and one that's seen them engage in a high-stakes financial tango with Russia. But that's not all. We're not just stopping at the who and the what, we're delving into the why and the how. We'll explore how seemingly unrelated factors like geography, climate, and even soil conditions play a critical role in shaping the geopolitical landscape. We'll uncover how these elements have influenced Russia's actions and driven their choices. We're going to learn from a wealth of knowledge that goes beyond just the geopolitical, extending into global finance, international relations, and even local news sources from around the world. Because to truly understand the global stage, one must understand the numerous layers and facets that shape it. Fasten your seatbelts and prepare for an enlightening journey that will transform the way you view the world. Let's dive right into the captivating, sometimes turbulent world of geopolitics with Peter Zeihan.
Ones that, for whatever reason, the Americans have chosen not to make. And then you go on and talk about, Huawei and the other companies like that. And this podcast is meant to be a global podcast. I'm not pro or anti-Chinese. I've been to the country 4 or 5 times on business and appreciate much about them. I'm also not naive to know that as a global superpower, they have a very strong intent on taking their place at the top of the food chain, if you will. Talk a bit about what the world needs to know about China, and how soon do you think they're going to become the dominant player economically and militarily, if indeed that's where you think it's headed?
Well, let me give you the punchline first. This is China's last decade as a coherent nation state. So we're going to be very soon talking about Chinese weakness and the effect of China's disintegration. But let me give you 3 big reasons. First of all, like that chapter that you quoted, there is nothing that is made in China that can't be made anywhere else. And because their demographics have been aging so aggressively for so long, their labor costs are now about 3 times what the labor costs of Mexico are. And Chinese labor is not as highly skilled as Mexican labor. So we've already seen the hemorrhaging out of the industrial space, most notably to Mexico and Vietnam, but some to the United States as well. In fact, the United States is competing on some of these sectors that we honestly had given up on, because now with the shale revolution, our energy prices are the lowest in the world, our electricity prices are the lowest in the world. So we're in this weird world where the United States excels at the high end and the low end at the same time, while the Mexicans take care of everything in the middle. It's a very successful system, and it's out-competing the Chinese on most metrics. Second, the Chinese do not have the naval capacity to push out from their own coast. Yes, they've got a lot of vessels, but only about 10% of them can sail more than 1,000 miles from the coast. And that assumes no one's shooting at them and they're going slow to save fuel. Really, the operational range for the Chinese Navy is only about 300 miles. So they can't get past Vietnam, much less to the Persian Gulf if there's an energy crisis. And then third, back to those demographics. Since the book came out, the Chinese have been updating bit by bit their census data, and they've now come to the public conclusion that they overcounted their population by in excess of 100 million people, with all of those missing millions aged 40 and under. If that is true, And I can't imagine that they'd be bad-mouthing themselves to make themselves look good. I mean, the logic of that's weird. If that's true, we are talking about the fastest workforce and population decline ever in human history. And we don't even have an economic model as a species for what will work with the Chinese system just 5-10 years from now, because they won't have enough people to do the work, and they certainly won't have enough people to consume. And that leaves them completely dependent upon whether the United States wants to import stuff from them. And it's become very clear in our politics under both Trump and Biden that the answer to that is no.
Peter, what is the average citizen of the world to learn from China's abrupt change in their COVID policy, from perhaps the most draconian in the world to almost overnight some of the most liberal? What are we to learn about the trajectory of their politics and their economy and their ability to be either a pariah state or a partner in a global economy?
In a word, capriciousness. Chairman Xi of the CCP has now gutted the system so wholly that there is no longer any institution within the system that has any authority aside from him, his person. The CCP is a shell of what it used to be. The analysts are gone. The intelligence officials who are intelligent are gone. He has executed or imprisoned or intimidated into silence everyone within the PRC who's capable of conscious thought. It's a one-man show now. And so policy reflects what he says on any given day. And then the bureaucrats take it one of two directions. Number one, they wait to be personally told what to do, so we get scoliosis. Or two, they're zealots and they think they're doing what he wants. And that's how you get people out in EV suits, dusting runways with virusicide in order to disinfect them during COVID. So the ability of this country to carry out functional policy is now gone. And it's down to the whims of one man with a bureaucracy that doesn't know what to do with that. We're seeing organizational failure in real time.
Do you see China becoming an American ally more so in the future as the demographics and the economics of our positions change?
It's something worth considering, because the whole idea of how we fought the Cold War is we created globalization to patrol the ocean so that anyone could ship anything anywhere and interact with any partner and access our market. That's how the world rebuilt itself after World War II. And that was the deal that Nixon handed to Mao himself in China in order to get the Chinese to switch sides in the Cold War, and it worked. But China's too big now, and the rest of the world is too aged now. And that deal was never going to last much longer than 1992. Honestly, it's a surprise it's lasted this long. Xi, as the leader of a one-man state, theoretically does have the power to completely change course. But the sacrifices that China would have to give to the United States economic and strategically to attract American interest in some sort of New Deal, I don't see that happening. We're going through our own period of isolationism here in the United States, and China bashing has become a very strong bipartisan point of agreement in American politics. It's one of the few.
It's also one of the things that's led to Asian American hate, right? I have many friends in that community that fear for their lives, fear for the lives of their parents and family and friends because of attacks on Asian Americans that come from misinformation or just outright prejudice. Do you see that on the rise? Do you think Americans are becoming more charitable about differentiating between enemies and our friends within our country? I mean, where would you go with that?
Well, something to keep in mind about Americans, especially white Americans, is they have a real hard time telling different ethnic groups apart.
It's true.
If you remember back to 9/11, most of the people who were getting attacked were Hispanic because Americans didn't know the difference. So anytime you see actions by Americans in that vein, you gotta look through it. You gotta look at that very, very closely.
It's ignorance.
So I think that's probably a better word to use than hatred or intolerance. And one of the things we have seen that has really impressed me of late, well, let me give you two things. Number one, with the Ukraine war, American charity towards Ukraine has just caught me off guard. The degree of effort, not just by the government, but by private citizens and firms to stand with the Ukrainians. And second, say what you will about the rest of his politics, one of the great successes of the Trump administration was convincing Americans, especially conservative Americans, that Mexicans were part of the family. So we are capable of these huge leaps forward in terms of social unity, and we usually don't even acknowledge it until 30 years later.
I must have heard you wrong, because my experience was not that President Trump convinced conservatives or liberals alike that Mexicans were part of our family. I would have felt like his narrative was he demonized them.
He did during the campaign, and then within 1 year of being in office, he was talking about Mexicans no longer as bad hombres and drug runners and rapists, but as some of the greatest adherents to the American dream. And under Trump, believe it or not, relations between Mexico and the United States were the best they have ever been in the history of either republic. Fact is way stranger than fiction.
Fascinating analysis.
As this video comes to a close, it's clear that we've navigated the intricate terrain of global geopolitics, uncovering the depths of the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict and the broader international implication. We've traced the threads of global finance, diplomatic strategies, and even geographical factors all woven into the complex tapestry of this geopolitical scenario. We've dissected Russia's audacious strategies and the wide-ranging impacts of economic sanctions, highlighting the delicate balancing act nations play on the global stage. We've also shed light on China's intricate role in the geopolitical saga, a high-stakes dance amid the East-West tension. Moreover, we've gone beyond the surface, exploring the why and the how. We've learned how geographical, climatic, and even soil conditions can shape the geopolitical landscape, driving nations' decisions and influencing global trends. This deep dive underscores the importance of staying informed and understanding the nuances behind the headlines. It requires a broad perspective, an open mind, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. By doing so, we can better appreciate the global forces at play, make informed decisions, and actively participate in the global conversation. So let's continue this journey of discovery together. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the complex world of geopolitics. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, this is World Money Matters signing off. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring.